Okay, ji. So this is A2 Trigonometry Lecture number 4. We will be working on trigonometric equations today. If you have any issues in the quadratic equations of trigonometry, please kindly link to AS lectures because this is advanced of what? AS. So let's just work upon few basic questions and then we will move towards the positive and the negative range. So trigonometric equations it is. Let's say we have sine theta is equal to 1 upon 2. And the domain that we have is theta for greater than 0 and less than equal to what? 360. So if we just look at this question, we can say that if we need to find theta, this should be sine inverse 1 upon 2. So this is positive sign. Remember that the positive sign is always in the first and the second quadrant. It is always in the first and the second quadrant. But we need to find the basic angle as well. Your basic angle here will be 30 because sine inverse 1 upon 2 is 30. If we just put down 30 here and 30 here. So your first angle will be 30. But if you see, you go anti-clockwise because of the positive domain, you go anti-clockwise to what? Basic angle 9. So if you see, your second angle should be what? 180 minus 30, which is equal to 150. So your answer for the second angle should be 180 minus 30. So which is equal to what? 30 and 150 degree. So these are the two angles of sine theta is equal to 1 upon 2 for theta greater than 0 and less than equal to what? 360. Similarly, that, similarly, if I say that sine theta is equal to 1 upon 2, still it's positive, but now theta is what? Greater than minus 180 and less than 180 degree. Now, what does this mean? This means that one particular aspect that negative, when we have negative domain, which means that if we just follow the same quadrants because of the positive value, we just follow the same quadrant because of the positive value, this will be theta is equal to sine inverse 1 upon 2 and theta basic angle is 30. So as I said that we have this negative domain, and if we create our axis, we know that positive sign is the first and the second quadrant. Positive is first and the second quadrant. If positive is the first and the second quadrant, we can directly write this thing as 30 as a basic angle. So this is 30 and this will be 30 as well. But considering the fact that we already know that for positive, for positive, you go anti-clockwise. But for negative, we go clockwise. But clockwise, this is 0 and this is 180. So if I say this is 0 and this is 180, if we just go anti-clockwise, it will have what? Positive 180 from 0. And if we just go clockwise to from the right hand side, we see this is 0 to negative. At the moment, there is no basic angle in the third and the fourth quadrant. There's no basic angle in the third and the fourth quadrant. So we cancel it down. Even for this particular thing, your answer will be 30 and the second angle should be 180 minus 30 should be equal to what? 150. The same thing goes about what? If we just say that our angle is, your angle is sine theta is equal to negative under root 3 upon 2. So if we see theta, we go about sine inverse. Since it is negative under root 3 upon 2. So we will always be taking what? Positive value in the calculator. Let's just erase this. And we know that theta will be what? 60. But knowing the fact that this particular thing is negative, so we will be taking negative quadrants. Your negative quadrants will be based upon your third and the fourth quadrant. Your negative quadrant will be based upon third and the fourth quadrant. If I say that the domain is theta greater than 0 less than equal to 360, so that means my entire rotation will be from here anti-clockwise because it is positive, anti-clockwise to the what? Basic angle line. And the second will be anti-clockwise to what? Your basic angle line. So the answer for this particular thing will be, let's just take about 60 basic angle, 60 here. So the first angle that we will get is 180 plus 60. And the second angle we will get is 360 minus 60. So the answer will be 240 and 240 and 300. So these are the two answers for the same particular domain. Let's just work upon the negative, but let's say this is question is sine theta is equal to negative under root 3 upon 2. But now domain is changed. Your domain is theta is greater than minus 180 and less than what? 180 degree. Now, in this regard, what you will look forward to, that your domain using the same method, that is sine inverse under root 3 upon 2, your theta becomes what? 60. But now what you need to know is that it was negative under root 3 upon 2. Since it was negative under root 3 upon 2, so negative quadrants will be used for sine. Sine is negative in the third and the fourth quadrant. Your basic angle is 60, your basic angle is 60. But at the moment, what you need to understand is that this is 0, this is 180. So if I go anti-clockwise to 180, there is no angle. But if I go, since it is negative, we'll go clockwise. When we go clockwise, what we can see is with the clockwise rotation, there's 60 degree, and with another clockwise rotation, we have 180 minus 60, which means the answers that we will have is 60 and 120. But since it is clockwise, your angles will be negative. There should be negative 60 and negative 120 degree because it will reflect the clockwise rotation just because of the domain that is negatively given. So when the domain is negative, we will move what? Clockwise. When the domain is positive, we will move what? Anti-clockwise. Since the question says till minus 180, so we will start from 0. When we start from 0 and go anti-clockwise, we'll move towards 180. And there are no angles here. But when we move clockwise, we know that there were two negative angles. And when we'll go clockwise, we'll stop till the basic angle. We got 60, which was negative 60 in the end. Then we move towards another angle, which will be obviously from 0 to the basic angle line, which means we will subtract 60 from what? 180. We'll end up having 120. But this will be also written in the negative sign. Okay, let's just move to another example question. And if I say that we have sine square theta is equal to 1 upon 2. And the domain that we have is theta greater than 0, less than equal to 360. Now, to solve this, what we need to understand is there is a square. There is a square. To solve square, what we do is we have under root 1 upon 2. So if we just solve this, we will have, and when you introduce under root, there is plus minus sign. So this will be, or let's just change the question a bit. Let's just take this as 4 so that it gets easier. So this will be 4. So this should be what? Plus minus 1 upon 2. So when we solve theta, sine inverse 1 upon 2. So the answer is what? 30. Now we know that the basic angle here is 30 with the same help that we had what? 1 upon 2. But looking forward to one particular thing, that it is plus minus. What does plus minus mean? That the quadrants that you will be considering will be positive and negative as well. Your basic angle should be what? 30 in each case. 30, 30, 30. And then that means your answers will be theta is equal to 30. The other would be 180 minus 30 will be 150. Then 180 plus 30. 180 plus 30 will be what? 210. And finally, what we'll end up having is 30 is subtracted from 360. So this should be 330. So the end result is 30, 150, 210, and 330. Now, with the same type of question that we initiated in at the first place was sine square theta is equal to 1 upon 2. So if this is the case, and let's just reflect that the theta is still greater than 0 and less than equal to what? 360. So what will be the way going forward? This should be sine theta is equal to under root 1 upon 2, again plus and minus. We will end up having sine theta is equal to 1 upon under root 2 plus minus. Considering that sine inverse theta will be sine inverse 1 upon under root 2. So theta is 45. So theta becomes what? 45. Since we had plus minus, so we'll give the quadrant first, second, third, and fourth. 45, 45, 45, and 45. And knowing the fact that the first answer is 45, the second will be 180 minus 45, the third will be 180 plus 45, and the fourth will be 360 minus 45. So the answers will be, your first answer will be 45, second will be 180 minus 45 is 135, then 180 plus 45 will be 225, and then it should be 315 when 360 is subtracted for 45. So these are the four answers that we will have in the end. Considering the same question, if I just say that question sine square theta is equal to 1 upon 2, but now the theta is from negative 180 to 180 degree. So that particularly means that from 0 to 180, I'll go positive, and from 0 to minus 180, I'll go negative. So which means theta is equal to sine inverse 1 upon under root 2. Your answer is still 45. But since there was under root, so we will be taking all the four quadrants. So when we are taking all the four quadrants, what does that mean? This means that your first, second, third, and fourth, 45, 45, 45, and 45. Your first two will be 45 and 135, because this is anti-clockwise because of 0 to what? 0 to 180 degree. From 0, theta is greater than 0, less than 180 degree, we'll go anti-clockwise. Anti-clockwise is always positive. So first one is 45. The second one is 180 minus 45, which will be 135. Then the clockwise rotation will take place because of the negative values. When we go clockwise, we'll go with what? Negative 45. The first will be negative 45. And then when we move towards the right to the basic angle, then it should be minus 135. So these are the four angles that are taken into consideration for what? Sine square theta is equal to 1 upon 2. Moving forward, let's just work upon another example question, that is, let's say the question is sine 3 theta is equal to minus sine 3 theta is equal to what? Minus 1 upon 2. And the question is based upon theta is greater than minus 180 and less than what? 180. Now, when we are solving this, we need to consider a few aspects. Number one, your domain is showing with negative 180 and positive 180. That means it will go anti-clockwise, it will go also clockwise. When it go anti-clockwise, it will be positive. When it goes clockwise, it will be negative. The other aspect is the 3 theta thing. The other aspect is the 3 theta thing. Before we use 3 theta, what we need to do is we need to find basic angles and all the related angles so that then we can divide it by 3. But for that, what we'll do is we'll do 3 theta is equal to sine inverse 1 upon 2. Now, what we know is that sine inverse 1 upon 2 is 30. So 3 theta is equal to what? 30. Now 3 theta is equal to 30. 30 becomes the basic angle. So when it is basic angle, so first we need to find out the angles related to the basic angle. First we need to find out the angles related to the basic angle. But with this respect, what I can see is that we had negative 1 upon 2. We had negative 1 upon 2. And negative quadrant are the third and the fourth quadrant. Negative quadrant are the third and the fourth quadrant relatedly. So this is 30 and this one becomes 30 as well. So the first answer, there's no anti-clockwise till negative, till positive 180. There's no angle because from 0 to 180, if I go till here, there's no particular angle because this was negative. But that means we need to go clockwise from the first angle and with the second angle as well. So can we just say that 3 theta is equal to negative 30 and negative 150 will be taken place for the domain with what? Minus 180. So theta will be minus 30 upon 3 and minus 150 upon 3. So the answer for this will be theta will be based upon minus 10 and this should be divided 150 divided by this should be minus 50. So these are the two answers related to what? Sine 3 theta with negative 1 upon 2 and theta greater than negative 180 less than equal to 180. Now considering the same question, what we intend to find is that this particular 3 theta will also have impact. This particular 3 theta will also have impact over what? Your domain, which is minus 180 to 180. So that means relatively these two answers will be there, but there will be addition more answers as well. Why? Because of the 3 theta thing. Because let's take an example. If I say 210, if I have 210, so the end result of 210 divided by 3 will be 70. So if we see that if this is 70, this will be within the range as well. Similarly, if I say we have 300, 300 divided by 3 is what? 100. So that means your bigger values can come in the domain as well. With that respect, what we can consider is that, with that respect, what we can see is that due to 3 theta, we know one thing that your domain was theta is greater than minus 180 and less than what? 180 degree. So if I just multiply it with the range, I know that this should be minus 540 theta and this should be what? 540. This should be what? 540. Now, this means that when I will be solving and divided by 3 in the end, the answer within 540, 540 divided by 3, it will end up having what? 180 degree. So what we knew initially was that my domain, my basic angle was what? It was My basic angle was 30, right? So since basic angle was 30 with a negative quadrants. Initially, for positive quadrant, it was from 0 greater than 0, theta greater than 0, less than equal to what? 180 degree. So when I saw there were no angles, there were no angles. But as soon as the range spread it till what? 540 because of 3 theta. Now I can see that my range goes beyond 180 till this. That means this angle will be possible. So this angle, first angle should be 180 plus 30. Your first angle should be 180 plus 30, which will be 210. Your second angle will be here till 30. So this should be 360 minus 30. So we know that it is 330. But now, considering the fact that if I move from here, this is 180, we cross the first angle. Since we took out the second angle, we reached to the point of 360 now, right? But obviously I need to go to the other 540 as well. Till 540, do I see any angle? No, there is no angle till 540. That means positive angles will be only two. Positive angles will be only two. So similarly, if we just look into this, that the other aspect of the question was that we have negative, this was 30 and this was 30 as well. Now we knew that theta was from where? Negative 540 till what? 0 as well. Negative 540 till 0 as well. So initially, when we got to the answer, we saw that the first angle was 30 and the second answer was what? 150 that we took out. Your first angle was 30 and your second answer was 150. But now, if I further extend, I can see that it crosses 180 till negative 360. I do not find any angle. But after negative 360, I can see another angle because I need to go to negative 150. So the another angle is, considering the fact 360 plus 30, another angle will be 390. And then starting again, all over again, we cross the first angle, we cross the second angle, we are moving towards the third angle. Since we have crossed the third angle, the fourth angle will be what? 540 minus 30. So this should be 540 minus 30. So the answers will be 390 and 510. But these are in negative as well. These are in negative as well. So the entire aspect of the answers, if we look forward to, we saw that 3 theta is equal to not only negative 30 and negative 150. 3 theta is also negative 510. Then we see that it is also negative 330. Then we saw that it was negative 150. Then we saw it is negative 30. Then we further investigated, we moved up to 210. We moved up to what? 210. Let's just work upon again so that we can just cover it up properly. The first one was 510 negative. The second one was negative 390. Third one was negative 150. Fourth one was negative 30. Then we ended up having 210 and 330. 210 and 330. Now when we divide this, negative 510 divided by 3, negative 390 divided by 3, negative 150 divided by 3, negative 30 divided by 3, 210 divided by 3, 330 divided by 3, we will end up having what? 510 divided by 3 is negative 170. 390 divided by 10 is negative 130. This is negative 50. We already calculated negative 10. This is 70 and this should be 110. All the answers that we got, were within the range of what? Theta greater than minus 180 less than equal to what? 180 with the expectation of what? 3 theta. With the expectation of what? 3 theta. So we knew that our range has increased, but when we will divide by 3, we will end up getting the answers within the range of what? Minus 180 and 180 positive. So whenever we are solving the domain, whenever we are solving with respect to domain and the angle, this 3 theta represents the cycle basically. This 3 theta represents the cycle. So that means if we have 3 theta, so that means if I say that sine is positive is 1, negative is negative 1. So 90, 180, 270 and 360. Your first normal cycle is this. This is your normal sine graph, right? But if I just break this thing up, we will break it up in the way that your 90 will divide by 3 will be what? 30. So we will have 60, then we will have 90, 120, 150, and 180. We will have positive 1 and negative 1. Considering that 90 we have maximum, we will have 60, 0, 90, 0, 120. Then again 150 have positive 1 and negative 1. Your graph will be, for sine, your graph will be like this in the positive domain. Similarly, if I move towards back, I will end up having what? My negative domain as well. And my negative domain will consider what? My negative domain will be minus 30. My negative domain will be minus 30, minus 60, minus 90, minus 90, and then we will have minus 90, minus 120, then we will have minus 150, and it will go beyond further till what? Minus 180. So that means this will be my normal graph considering what? Sine 3 theta for positive and the negative quadrant. So this is the normal concept when we are applying what? 3 sine 3 theta graph to get the answers from the basic angle quadrants. Let's just work upon another example question. Let's say cos 2 theta is equal to 1 upon 2 and the domain for this is theta is greater than 0 and less than equal to what? 360. So what we can do is 2 theta is equal to cos inverse 1 upon 2. And cos inverse 1 upon 2 is 30. Now we know one thing, that cos is positive in the first quadrant and in the last quadrant. Cos is positive in the first quadrant and in the last quadrant. Let's just correct this. This was 60 degrees. Now, moving forward, this is 60 and this is 60 as well. So the basic angle that we have is 60 degree. Can we just look into this, that the normal angles that we will have is 60 and 330, because your first angle will be anti-clockwise because it is a positive domain, anti-clockwise 60, and then it will move from here till this line. So we will subtract 60 from what? 360. So the answer would be 300. So 30 is in my mind right now. That is the reason I'm just making sure that all the answers are as respected to the 30 degree as basic. But let's just work upon this thing again, 60 and 300. Now, considering this thing, that 60 and 300 is not just the answer, because your normal, if we just see that you have 2 theta, and when you have 2 theta, that means cos cycle till 360 will be, there will be 2 cycles till 360. So moving forward, theta greater than 0, and this should be what? 720. When we multiply 360 by 2, it will be till 720. So that means if we just move, we move from 0 to the first second, we just calculated second, we go till 360 and then we'll move again. So the third angle that we will end up is having what? 360 plus 60, which will be 420. So the answer that we will have is 420, which is 360 plus 60. And for the last one, which will be 360 moving forward, and then we'll obviously have till what? 360 again, which will be 720 minus what? 60. 720 minus 60, 720 minus 60 will be 660. So now these are the four angles that are collected with the basic angle that is given as 60. So that means 2 theta. Your first angle is 60, your second angle is 300, the third angle is 420, then we have 660. And when we divide this by all the angles by 2, 300 divided by 2, 420 divided by 2, 660 divided by 2. And when we look at this should be what? 30. This should be 150. 420 divided by 2 becomes 210. And this should be 330. That means all the answers are back again in the range of what? Theta greater than 0 and less than equal to 360. Just because of what? 2 theta being divided, 2 theta being divided, and we calculated the entire angle till what? 720 by multiplying the domain. So this is how we calculate when the cycles are increased. Now here's another example question. Let's just say theta plus 50 is equal to sine inverse 1 upon 2. And we know that domain is from 0 to 360. So this is theta plus 50. This should be sine inverse is 30. So considering 30 as your basic angle and knowing the fact that this is what the first and the second quadrant. So this is 30 and this is 30. So your second answer is what? 150. But now we know that there is plus 50 as well. So what we do is 30 minus 50 and 150 minus 50. So we will end up having what? Minus 20 and we will end up having what? 100. Since this is negative 20 and negative 20 is out of the range, what we do is we'll make sure that this negative 20 comes down in the domain. So if we work upon negative 20, your negative 20 is this. Because negative 20 means your negative cycle. So negative 20 if comes here, we will be going towards anti-clockwise to the point till what? 20. So the answer that we will have is what? 360 minus 20, which will be what? 340. One answer will be 340. The other answer will be what? 100 that is given. So there are two answers for this, 100 and 340. So if the normal domain is positive and we are getting any negative answer, we'll make sure that we work out through that with 360 rotation of subtracting that 20 to get the answer. Similar to this, we can also work upon one question that can be similar to the same concept, cos theta minus 60. Let's say it is under root 3 upon 2. And the answer that we are getting or the domain that we have is greater than 0 and less than equal to what? 360. Now considering the same concept, theta minus 60, and what we do is cos inverse under root 3 upon 2. Your basic angle here is 30 now. And cos, considering cos, your first and the last quadrant is positive in the cos. So the answer that we get is 630 and 330. Since we have this theta is equal to 30 plus 60 and 330 plus 60 as well. So what we have here is theta is equal to 90. Theta is equal to 90. Another angle will be theta 390. But considering the fact that if we just rotate this, we know that 360 is still here. The second thing will be 390 will be till here, considering 30 as well. So the answer will be 90 and 360 is subtracted to make sure the other angle will be what? 30. So the two answers for this will be 90 and 30. Solving the 330 concept, when we are adding what 60, we made sure that the answer that we got was 390. Since it was not in the normal domain, so what we did was we rotated till 360, and the other part was what 30 that was added. If we subtract 390 minus 30, we will have what 360, we will have what 30. So 30 is one answer. The other answer is what 90 for theta negative 60. Now let's just look into this, that if the question is in pi, so theta is greater than what 0, and let's say it is still 2 pi. So what does this mean? This means that if we have four quadrants, this becomes your first, this is your second, this is your third, and this is your fourth. Let's say we have alpha, all the angles are your alpha. So what are your answers here? The first quadrant answer will be alpha itself, because alpha will give you the basic angle. Your second quadrant answer would be pi minus alpha. Your third should be pi plus alpha, and the fourth should be 2 pi minus alpha. This is your normal. That means your pi is what? 180, and your 2 pi is what? 360. So if we just look into this and we know that the domain is from 0 to 2 pi, so the answer itself will be in the, not in the degree form. It will not be in the degree form. It will be in the radian form. You will be changing your calculator throughout the radian form if the quotient domain is in the pi. The other concept that you need to understand here is, just to before we end this up, is the complex number Argand diagram, which will be tested the similar way. In complex number Argand diagram, you should be well aware that it is from negative 180, theta is from negative 180 to what? 180 degree. So that means that if I just work upon this, that means it is from negative pi to what? Positive pi. When it is from negative pi to positive pi, your two ways answers will be taken into consideration. That means if we have basic angle, now these are your basic angles. So let's just say that this is your alpha, this is your alpha as well, this has become your alpha as well, this becomes your alpha as well. But considering that since it is negative positively, you will go what? Anti-clockwise, and you will go clockwise if it is negative radian. So for this should be alpha, and this should be pi minus alpha. But in the third quadrant, this should be minus pi minus alpha, because the answer will be in the negative, and this should be the negative alpha. So considering the complex number Argand diagram or the Argand concept, in the same way, the quadrant will be taken into consideration with negative to the positive pi, or negative 180 to the positive 180. Normally, the question is in the pi. So this is the way that normal your basic angle is used in the A2 questions, where you might be asked relatively with the help of what? Square, with the question of square. The question can be based upon plus minus under root. Then we can have negative and positive degrees. Then we know it can be negative and positive, but with the help of 3 theta, we'll be changing the domain itself till what? Negative 540 and positive 540 by multiplying. And obviously, considering the concept of the graph of sine, moving forward, we will also be tested throughout this with the cos as well. It can be tested with 10 to. There can be a question based upon what? The angle being added or angle being subtracted. And the question will be based on the radian mode as well. If the question is in radian, your calculator needs to be in the radian. Similarly, there is a concept of A2 with complex number with the same quadrant. Your first two are for positive, Your say last two are for negative. So whenever we have negative degree, the negative degree will be going clockwise with negative alpha and negative pi minus alpha, and this should be positive pi minus alpha and alpha. So there, this is it for today. I hope that your trigonometric equations are clear enough. Thank you very much.